an experience that still makes my skin crawl whenever I think about it. During a long holiday, my boyfriend and I set off on a long-awaited trip. We had done our research in advance and even booked a highly rated guest house. It was nestled at the foot of a mountain with picturesque views. But when we arrived, we were stunned. The guest house had 3 floors, but it looked like it had been abandoned for years. The walls were cracked. When we walked into the room we had booked, we were hit with a strong, musty smell. My boyfriend and I exchanged looks, frowning as we stepped in. It was nothing like the pictures online. I took out my phone to search for other options nearby, but found that all nearby hotels were fully booked, and the nearest alternative was more than 50 kilometers away. With a sore back and no choice left, I resigned myself to lying on the bed, just about to close my eyes for a rest, when I found unidentified hair on the pillow. How long had it been since this place was cleaned? I barely slept that night. The windows wouldn't close properly, and the wind howled all night. My head was throbbing by morning. As soon as the sun came up, I went to confront the owner. But to my shock, he looked completely indifferent and flat out refused to give us a refund. What was supposed to be a relaxing trip had turned into a nightmare. Furious, I gave the guest house a scathing review. Terrible place, dirty rooms and an arrogant owner. Feels like staying in a haunted house. Don't stay here unless you want to regret it for life. A few days after the holiday ended, I suddenly got a call from the guest house owner. His intention was clear. He wanted me to delete the bad review. Remembering the awful experience, I refused immediately, but he wouldn't give up. He kept calling, apologizing again and again. His tone was very humble, completely different from how he was before. I couldn't help but smirk a little. When he said they had renovated the place and especially invited us to stay again, free of charge, I eventually agreed. When we returned, the guest house looked completely different. The rooms were clean and tidy. It was nothing like before. Surrounded by beautiful scenery and fresh air, I finally began to relax and felt a pleasant shift in mood. With a big smile, the owner told us, "Tonight, we've prepared barbecue and beer just for you. Hope you like it." I smiled again, this time involuntarily. Who knew a bad review could be this powerful? Thinking about the strange turn of events that brought us back, I smiled at the owner and said, "We'll leave you a good review." But at that moment, the owner's smile froze. In the next second, his expression turned odd. He stared coldly at me and said slowly, "I want you to leave it right now." His sudden shift in attitude left me frozen. I felt uneasy all over. But since I had agreed earlier, I went ahead and deleted the bad review, replacing it with a positive one. After checking his phone, the owner squinted and then gave me a creepy smile. That smile stood out disturbingly in the night. That's when I noticed the entire guest house was eerily quiet. It felt like my boyfriend and I were the only ones staying there. After dinner, we hurried back to our room. The mountain weather had changed quickly, and soon it was pouring rain. Raindrops hit the leaves outside with a sharp rustling sound. The curtains swayed wildly with the wind. I shivered and walked over to shut the window. Suddenly, a pale face appeared outside. It was the guest house owner. "Having fun today?" he asked in a deep voice, speaking through the window. His unblinking eyes were fixed on me. My heart nearly leapt out of my chest. I snapped out of it after a second and stiffly replied, "Yes, very much." He chuckled darkly, then turned and walked away from the window. I quickly shut it and drew the curtains tight, cutting off everything outside. But even so, my heart continued pounding uncontrollably. In the middle of the night, I suddenly woke up. My boyfriend was still playing on his phone beside me, so I asked him to get me a glass of water. He searched the room but couldn't find any bottled water. Seeing it was only a little after 11, he decided to go ask the owner. But as soon as he opened the door, the owner was standing right outside, staring straight at us. Again, he silently handed over 2 bottles of water. Seeing the water in my boyfriend's hand, I could no longer stay calm. My boyfriend also looked uneasy. Everything that had happened so far flashed through our minds. The owner's service had been too perfect. So perfect, it was disturbing. Felt like he had been watching us the whole time. We exchanged a worried glance. No matter what, we couldn't stay here another second. We grabbed our bags and fled. But just as we started the car, the owner appeared beside the window, again, staring at me with that same creepy look. "Are you two leaving already?" he asked. I let out a terrified scream as my boyfriend slammed the gas pedal. Through the rearview mirror, we watched the owner's eerie expression slowly fade into the distance. 11 girls were hanging out in their dormitory when a strange message suddenly appeared in their group chat. "One of the 6 people in your dorm has turned into a ghost." The dorm fell into stunned silence. No one responded. The silence in the darkness made everything feel even more eerie. Then, 2 short vibrations from someone's phone broke the stillness. A message from a user with a pitch-black profile picture appeared. "The game officially begins now. Your mission is to survive until dawn." "Who sent that message?" someone asked, panicked. "How did they get into our group?" Another girl shouted, "Why can't I exit the chat?" We exchanged nervous glances. No matter what we tried, the chat app wouldn't close. Emily, irritated, scoffed, "One of us is the ghost? Whose idea of a joke is this?" There were 6 of us in the room. Me, Emma, Ava, Lily, Emily, and Monica. Emily looked around and noticed something off. On Ava's side of the room, everything was pitch black. The rest of us had our phone flashlights on. Ava didn't. We all instinctively pointed our phone lights at her bed. The sight made us scream. Ava was dead. Her silhouette lay still, completely lifeless. Panic spread like wildfire. "Call the police. Now!" someone cried. We tried, but no matter what we did, our phones wouldn't leave the chat screen. Monica quickly grabbed her coat and said, "I'm going to get the dorm supervisor." She ran out the door. The supervisor's office was on the 1st floor. Our dorm was on the 5th. It would take time. Inside, we were paralyzed by fear and confusion. Emily stared at Ava's bed, her face pale and expression frozen. After several minutes of dead silence, everyone's phones buzzed again. A new message had arrived. "Lock the door. Lock it now. She's outside. Do not open the door." It was from Monica. The message hit us like a wave of ice. Whatever was happening was now beyond our understanding. We tiptoed to the door. The small glass window let us see a little of the hallway, but it was completely dark. Just as we were about to give up and back away, the hallway lights began turning on one by one, progressing slowly toward our door. "These are motion sensor lights," someone whispered. "They only light up when someone walks past." The lights continued down the hallway, growing closer until the one directly in front of our door lit up. We dropped down and huddled together, crouching by the door, backs pressed together, gripping one another tightly. None of us dared look behind. The light grew brighter through the frosted glass. Then, bam, something slammed into the door. Blood smeared across the glass, followed by 2 bloody handprints that dragged downward. I clenched my teeth to stop myself from screaming. Emily, panic-stricken, grabbed a small table and shoved it against the door. Then came a familiar voice from outside. "It's me! Let me in! Olivia! I'm Olivia!" I froze. Olivia had been next door eating a late-night snack. Now she was at the door, drenched in blood, begging us to open it. Emily hesitated, then moved the table and opened the door. Olivia stumbled in. A deep knife wound ran down her shoulder. Blood poured down her arm. While I fumbled to open the first aid kit, Olivia clutched my arm, crying uncontrollably. "It's Monica," she sobbed. "She's the ghost." Everyone stared at her in shock. "She stabbed me," Olivia cried. "What? That's impossible," Emily protested. "Are you sure you're not mistaken? Monica was the one who warned us." "I'm not wrong," Olivia screamed. "She's the ghost." "Wait." The message said the ghost is one of the 6 of us. A wave of dread ran through me. In all the chaos, we'd missed something crucial. The message hadn't said the ghost was outside. It was one of us. Monica's warning could have been a setup. Just as that chilling thought dawned on us, another message popped up in the group chat. "Be careful of Olivia. She's the one who's not right." The room spiraled into chaos. Now Monica and Olivia were accusing each other. One of them had to be lying. one of them was the ghost, but both of them were here right in front of us. That meant the danger was closer than ever. For everyone's safety, Olivia, I think you need to step outside. Without warning, Emily grabbed Olivia and began pushing her toward the door. Why do so many schools prohibit students from staying on campus during holidays? Some dorm buildings even get completely sealed off. If you're like me and insist on staying, be warned, you might experience some strange things. During the National Day holiday, my roommates had all gone home. The classrooms and dormitories were locked down. A school that usually holds thousands of students was now only manned by a lone security guard at the main gate. I had an event during the holiday, so on the third day of the break, I decided to return to school and stay overnight to make it easier to attend early the next morning. Since all the dorm staff were on holiday and had gone home, I had to climb over the wall to sneak into the dorm building around 9 p.m. When I got into the second floor room and looked out the window, everything was pitch black. The entire campus was empty. I was the only one in the dorm building. It was so quiet I could hear the faint humming from the equipment room on the first floor. After running around all day, I just wanted to take a shower and go to bed. The corridor lights in the dorm are motion activated, but oddly, none of the lights turned on after I opened the door. That felt strange, but I was in a hurry to shower, so I didn't think too much of it and rushed to the bathroom. The shower and toilet are separated by just one wall. While I was showering, I suddenly heard the sound of a bathroom stall door opening, very clearly. I figured maybe someone else, like me, hadn't gone home either. But here's the creepy part. After that single door opening sound, there were no further noises. No one using the toilet, no flushing, no door closing. I finished showering quickly and went to check the stalls. Every door was wide open. There was no one there. Confused, I thought I had misheard and started heading back to the dorm room. But just as I reached the door, before even going inside, I heard that same bathroom door noise again. In the empty hallway, the sound was crystal clear, definitely someone opening or closing a door. I rushed into my room and shut the door, pressing my ear to it. Just like earlier, after that one sound, there was complete silence. I locked the door, got into bed, and watched some videos to distract myself before trying to sleep. It was dead silent. The dorm has 5 floors, and even in the middle of the night, there would usually be some sounds. But now, the whole building was empty. I was genuinely scared being there alone. Just as I was drifting off, I heard the hallway motion sensor light turn on. It makes a soft clicking noise when it activates, and in the silent night and empty corridor, the sound stood out. I immediately noticed it. I peeked through the crack under the door and saw that the hallway light had indeed turned on. The sensor should only activate if something moves, but I didn't hear any footsteps. No sounds at all. Why did the light turn on? As I puzzled over it, I heard a noise coming from the ceiling, footsteps, like someone walking, and it sounded like high heels clicking on the floor. This is a male dorm. Why would there be high heels? And the sound pattern was strange. 2 steps, pause, as if whoever it was testing something. I quickly turned on the bedside lamp. The footsteps stopped immediately. I didn't dare go back to sleep. I stayed up playing games on my phone. Eventually, I got tired and drifted off again. Around 2:30 a.m., things escalated. I was jolted awake by the sound of someone running. It was abrupt, like a prank, pounding footsteps in the hallway, deliberately loud and chaotic. When I opened my eyes, I froze. My back went cold. The bedside light had been turned off. The room was completely dark. The dorm door was cracked open, even though I had locked it from the inside before sleeping. How was it open? My phone had somehow been turned off too. The running outside continued, fading away, then coming back again, back and forth several times. Finally, the footsteps stopped right at my door. No one entered, but it felt like the person was standing right outside. Just one more step and they would be inside. Yet they just stood there, pressed against the door. I shut my eyes tight. Minutes passed with no more sound. When I slowly opened my eyes, the hallway light had turned off. I used my phone speaker as a flashlight and powered it back on. Then I carefully turned on the bedside light and quietly locked the door again. I moved my bed and sat as far from the door as possible. I waited until dawn, packed my stuff, and ran. When I got home, I broke out in a cold sweat and was drenched for an entire day. From then on, no matter what, I'll never stay alone in the dorm again. I woke up inside a thriller novel, one where a murderer was lurking just outside my door. I knew in advance that 3 days from now, a serial killer would sneak into this apartment building. He even had the audacity to leave me a note, boldly declaring I was his final target. I tried everything, calling the police, attempting to leave the apartment, but nothing worked. Looking at the wobbly front door and the rotting wooden windows, I felt a moment of despair, but I quickly shook it off. I checked my bank balance, made sure I had enough funds, and then immediately contacted 5 different renovation companies. If I couldn't leave, then I would make sure that killer couldn't come in either. This story was full of twists, just like a suspense novel where everyone around the protagonist is hiding something. The killer was stalking the apartment, and the plot paused right when the protagonist began to realize that even the neighbors and visiting friends were lying. I remember cursing the author for stopping the story at such a tense moment. Now, as the person inside the story, I wanted nothing more than to crawl into the author's head and demand the truth. But that wasn't useful now. I might not be able to defeat the killer or figure out who was lying, but I could fix the most vulnerable part of this apartment, its security. I hired 5 renovation companies from different regions, knowing full well from all the crime thrillers I'd read that a killer could easily disguise themselves as a contractor. So I had the 5 companies monitor each other, and I stayed beside them the entire time. I didn't even trust the idea of them taking turns unsupervised. Under my direct supervision, I had the front door, windows, floor, and ceiling all rebuilt to my specifications. I threw out anything that could hide a person, like the huge wardrobe and the bed with that creepy gap underneath, and replaced it with a simple mattress directly on the floor. You'd think that was enough, but of course it wasn't. I also had surveillance cameras installed at the entrance. But if you've read enough mystery novels, you'll know that cameras can be tampered with. What if one of the installers or someone posing as one was the killer? What if they swapped out the live feed with fake footage? So I contacted 9 surveillance companies, split into 3 groups. Each time a batch of cameras was installed, one group did the work, and the other 2 monitored them. I even tugged on each of their faces to make sure no one was wearing a mask. 6 high-resolution hidden cameras were installed covering every angle of the door. I finally had surveillance with no blind spots. But even that wasn't enough. What if, after failing to get inside, the killer decided to burn the place down? I hired 3 more contractors to install fire suppression systems in the ceiling. If fire ever broke out, water would spray instantly. But that still couldn't stop a fire sweeping through the whole building. So I called the fire department, cleared the apartment of every flammable item, bought 5 fire extinguishers, and 3 gas masks just in case. By this point, you'd think I'd feel safe. Still not even close. All that renovation noise would have surely drawn attention from whoever was watching in the shadows. So before the work even began, I put up a curtain over the front door to block the view. Let them guess what I was up to. They couldn't stop me. But the apartment wasn't ready just yet. I looked around and realized something major was still missing: food. What if the killer was incredibly patient and waited outside for weeks? What would I eat? What if they cut the water or electricity? What would I drink? How would I survive? The worst outcome would be to build a perfect fortress and then starve or suffocate inside it. That would be the dumbest death imaginable. So I stocked up 200 pounds of rice, 200 pounds of flour, plenty of vegetables and meats, all kinds of medication, and jugs of purified water. I even bought 3 live chickens and a bunch of hydroponic vegetable kits, just in case. I carried everything back myself, not wanting to let a single delivery person inside. After sweating buckets hauling everything in, I still didn't rest. I used a metal detector and an infrared scanner to inspect every item. What if the killer had infiltrated the warehouse or delivery crew? Fortunately, everything passed inspection. I also installed a generator in the utility room. As long as I used power sparingly, I could still live a relatively normal life. After a quick break, I headed out again. Now maybe you're thinking, fortified apartment, tons of food, safe at last? Not quite. Anyone who's read enough suspense knows signal jammers are deadly. The killer could block all communication and trap me in a dead zone. So I bought 2 satellite phones. That way, when I spotted the killer outside, I could call the police immediately. And let's not forget weapons. One of the most terrifying things in these stories is being unarmed. I wasn't going to let that happen. So I got a baseball bat, a sickle, a riot shield, and a stun baton just in case. I wouldn't use them unless absolutely necessary. Everything was scanned and cleared for safety. Only then did I finally begin to relax. I downloaded dozens of dramas and thousands of novels onto my tablet, especially my favorite. That covered my mental well-being too. At last, with everything in place, I lay down on my mattress and napped for half the day. As night fell, I suddenly noticing someone coming.